April 2026 Brazil Mission by Chuck King. We traveled without issue from Pittsburgh to Newark to Panama City and then to Manaus, Brazil. We were treated, Phil Tompkins and I were treated very well along the way. We got to Panama City and then finished up the trip to Manaus. Here's a view from my hotel room. That evening, after a few hours rest, we went to the public boat and got on the boat with Jerison and Parenche, and we met our dear brother Paulo on the boat, and we took about a 1.5 hour trip to another little town where we stopped for lunch. You can see here we had lunch in this little restaurant right along the Amazon River. Took a couple of photos there with the river in the background, standing outside that restaurant along the street. And we took an Uber, actually 2 Ubers, with all of our luggage down this cement road, which is not a real bad road, but it's narrow and rough. And we went to the village of Cambiche, where Pastor Gustavo opens his home to us. You'll see the pictures here. Lots of buzzards around everywhere in the jungle. They have all kinds of animals, horses, cows, many cows and chickens running around. Of course, all the fish in the river. And we stayed right here in this house connected to the church building where we had 2 nights of meetings. This beautiful country there in the jungle, right along a stream outside the house, and then across the way is the Amazon River. The first night we had our service here, and in each service we had some praise and worship, and that's Pastor Gustavo right there. I've known him for many years, been there about 7 times total. And then Phil would teach. Of course, Jerison's translating for both of us. We taught for about a half hour each, and then we called them to respond to the message, and they're very responsive, and almost always all of them came. And then Phil prayed for several people after a couple of the services, and we had a chicken incubator training. Phil did a good job with that the next morning there in Cambiche, and these people attended. There were a total of 9 of us there, and they were very interested. It's sort of a complicated piece of equipment, but Phil has the printed material in Portuguese to give them. He goes over it thoroughly, and this is a flashlight, special flashlight to watch the growth of the chick. And you can see how beautiful it is there at sunset on the Amazon River. We got some really good photos of the sunsets during the week, and you can see how beautiful the jungle is and the sky is at night. We had our second evening service after that training on the incubators, and all the people wanted their photograph taken, and we had the same kind of order to the service. Both of us would teach. We tried to stay within a half hour. Phil did stay within his time, but 2 of the services I went over and went longer. But there's Phil and Parenche, who is a part of the church in Porto Velho with Jerison. He came along, was a great help for us, and he gave a testimony or a greeting at every service. You see how the people responded to the message and would come forward and seek the Lord that they might be changed by the power of God. And again, Phil prayed for people that needed specific prayer. The next day we got in this nice boat and left Cambiche and made our way over to Parawa, where Pastor Paulo is the pastor. I've known him for many years. We we had to stop and get gas. There's little gas stations that come out with a can of gas, a few liters of gas, and fill their tank up. And then we made it to Paulo's, but we couldn't get that big boat back to his house, so we had to transfer to this small boat and make it through a bunch of these lily pads and grass that grows right on the water and gets caught in the tangle. It tangles itself in the motor of the boat, and they have to stop and clear it out or be careful they don't damage their motor. So you have to go really slow, and sometimes they even got out and walked along the edge of that stream and pulled the boat along the stream so we could get clear of that. This is Paulo's church building, and here's one of the showers, two of the showers and toilets that Paulo has in his house. They're very, very kind to us, feed us way more food than we should ever eat. Every meal, you can see the fish here that was being prepared. We had a wide variety of food. This is the first evening service. We had 2 evening services here in Parawa, and the people responded so well, as always, to the preaching. We had the same format. Phil and I would preach, Jerson would translate, and Parenche would give his testimony. And there's Phil there. You can see the people. They were always very responsive. They just hungry for the Word of God. And it's not like they're terribly poor people, but they aren't rich either, and they have a rough life there in that hot, humid jungle, and everything is done on the river. Mostly they go by boats. You can see them coming to seek the Lord after the messages were preached. And so the next day, in the morning, we had our second incubator training with these folks from the Parawa church. And again, Phil did a great job. Jerson even learned enough to do a little bit of the training himself, because he's going to have to train in the future when Phil isn't there. And Jerson will go with me to Peru this fall, and I'll be taking one of these egg incubators, and he will train someone in the jungle there to use the egg incubator to start a chicken project. It's very detailed, yet it's all written down for them. I think most of them have already raised chickens, so they know what they're doing. You can see Jerson putting together. This is a heater that you use after the chicks are hatched, and they stay under that for a couple of weeks before they can go out on their own. And this is there's a little computer with a motor and a fan that controls the activities. These are the people that are want to be involved. This brother will actually be responsible for the incubator. The next evening service, there's Parencha sharing his testimony. The people came that night, and as always, are hungry for the word. Phil taught again, and they responded. And I taught, and they responded again. And they're hungry to become the disciples. I taught on the last enemy, which is death, and Phil had a couple different subjects he taught on. I was encouraging them about the resurrection that's coming for us, that death cannot stop us. We went on Sunday morning to visit our dear brother Sergio, who was always helping us. He's also a pastor of this little congregation. He's trying to get this building going, and we had our photo taken there. Sergio on the right. He's always helping us with boats and with our luggage and getting out of tough situations. So we really love that brother. And they're stopping for gas. A tin funnel pouring out of a metal can to fill the tank. And now we're off again in the afternoon to go to our last church service, which was probably 40 minutes away from Paulo's house. And here we are. They've been building this church building since 2010, and they're still not finished. They have a nice sized congregation, but they're trying to make the building very fancy. So, as typically, I will go in and preach what the New Testament church looked like compared to this church and all of our churches today around the world. And I called them to see the difference and to turn away from the teachings and traditions of men in order to become a New Testament church. Phil had a good message as well before I preached, and I preached for an hour, so that was a long time there. I was really on fire and preaching, and they all responded. They came, even though it was a difficult message for them, they came and said they want to be the kind of disciple that I taught them about from the New Testament. They want their church to be that way. We handed out 5 chlorine generators that the pastor is already involved in this, and he needed some more equipment for his people. He can train them. There's our team. We had a great time together. Look at this beautiful sunset photo that I took from through the window from that church building. And then the next morning, we headed back to Manaus. All was well. We had a great trip. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your offerings.